Okay, I've thought of another question for you.
Go
it's
ahead.
not amongst the questions that are on your form, and it might be...
That's no
so,
problem.
let's jump into it.
Yeah, let's.
I don't know if you're aware of Robert McKee.
No, I'm not.
He's he's famous as a screenwriting guru from Hollywood, but he teaches all over the world and teaches story, the art of story. And I've seen an interview with him where he talks about, it's actually talking about video games, because a lot of people from the computer game industry come to his lectures to learn about storytelling. But he is very adamant.
What does that mean?
Well, what does it mean? Veldig seriøs.
Okay,
Veldig opptatt av. He's very adamant that the video games are not art. They have aspects of them are art. You know, they can have an artistic, you know, the design and the, you know, it can be beautiful, but the experience is not an aesthetic experience. That there's something different between going to the theatre or to the movies and sitting back and having something that's separate from you, and to have that safe distance, and that creates it's a different way of receiving. Yes. Or it is receiving, whilst when you play a video game, you are yourself an active participant, and that being an active participant, to a certain extent, is standing in the way for that kind of leaning back, kind of receiving. So being a passive but actively receiving, or being an active participant in something that's happening, is actually two very different things. And the one is akin to sports, and the other is an aesthetic and an artistic experience, or an experience of art. And this made me, you know, I'm thinking about this because of, we're talking about participation. We're talking about the children's being an active participants in theatre. Does this mean, you know, do you think he's correct that these two things are that separate? And is there a danger that actually making a very kind of interactive piece of theatre removes the theatre from it and makes it something else? It just makes it, you know, an activity day at school. It makes it, you know, that the kids won't get an aesthetic experience of it. They won't learn anything from it. They will, you know, it's a game.
I think that his view of what an aesthetic experience is quite narrow in terms of the world we live in today. But of course there are different aesthetic experiences. One is of an intellectual kind, as I understand you. I haven't seen him talk, but it's more like...
emotional, I think.
And emotional. But there's also bodily experiences and also a sensuous knowledge. This is... within phenomenology, you talk of and also affect, how you can experience something like directly, it hits you and doesn't go through your intellect. And I think that different kinds of art, and I'm not talking about like video games versus theatre or film, but different kinds of art sets about or starts different kinds of experiences. And this is perhaps the hardest knowledge for me to learn, because I prefer what he describes. I prefer to lean back and to get it told to me and be emotionally moved and intellectually. But I think that when one participates with one's body in a room taking place, it's another experience. And the aesthetics of the body in space, you can't get that sitting like this. For instance, if you have to participate with your body in dance, you wouldn't get that experience from sitting. It's a different experience, but I think it's also, or it can be potentially an aesthetic experience, depending on whether what you're experiencing is related to art or not. So the question is, perhaps, is it art, and is video games art? Can it be? That's a large. It's a large question.
It is. It's also got to do with the element of competition, I guess. And in that sense, also interactive performances can be very different. In some you are immersed in some kind of, you know, just a sensory experience. And in some you are required to actually make very active choices.
Yes.
You're a player in a game. You are the hero of the story. So I think those are also very different. Very
different kinds. And this reminds me of the emancipated spectator that Rancière has written about, saying that the paradox of theatre is that it tries to abolish itself. I don't know if abolish is the right word, but it tries to cease to exist. And he uses as an example Artaud, who wants theatre to be like a symbiotic experience of life, actually a super or hyper real experience that could resemble the immersive experience, even though actually even further than that. And Brecht, who wanted the Verfremdung and the reflection and the distance, which is the other thing you described, where you actually take a step back and you have to discuss and you debate and you analyze. And he says that neither of these, Rancière says anyway, are better ways of participating than the other. And participation doesn't have to do with being bodily engaged or immersed. It has to be, you are a participant as a human being, sort of. You are capable of reflecting while you're looking or sitting, but also I don't know, I haven't read it that thoroughly yet. It remains to be done. So it doesn't depend on whether you are involved emotionally or intellectually, because you are involved. You are a participant as a spectator, no matter what. But the opportunity to meet or to experience something freely on the same level as the performers or as the play, that you feel that you can actually are invited to understand it. That's the important thing. And he uses pedagogy as an example. He has written also a book about a pedagogue called Jacques Otto, who wanted his students to learn French. I think he was Dutch, but he himself didn't know how to speak French. So he said to them, well, here's a French book, let's learn French together. So that's the image of the emancipated spectator being invited in to investigate something together with the artists. I don't know if that made sense, but for those who want to, you can read more about it. If you
Absolutely.
check out Rancière. Yeah.
And I think that this thing is a very interesting. There's so many interesting aspects of interactivity, and it's such a huge and complex field. And we are moving very close to the end of our interview. So, is there anything I've forgotten to ask you that you've prepared? Is there anything that you would like to talk about before we finish?
No, nothing in particular. I think that I think we've covered most of it.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we have. I think that that for a performer, I have something to round up. I think that there is, or we have made a model in SceSam, a dramaturgical model. You were talking about dramaturgy, trying to find out what a dramaturgical form or like the dramaturgical idea demands of both the performer and of the children. So if you decide to have the traditional stage performance where you pretend that there is no audience there, then the children will, in best case, be absorbed emotionally in the story, and they might respond with words perhaps or sounds, but on stage you won't hear them. You will be listening, but you won't react to them. And so that's the one end of the scale. And on the other end of the scale, the performers and the children are creating something together, which requires performers that are trained in improvisation and listening, and also we have found drama pedagogy or drama educational skills is important. And the children are expected to participate intellectually and emotionally and physically, as they actually are in the first shape also, but they are seated. So participation is decided on the dramaturgical level. That is perhaps a finding, even though I'm not sure we're not the only. I'm sure we're not the only ones who have thought of that.
But I think that is an important insight, and I think that's it's a nice place to, a nice thought to leave the listeners and viewers with.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to say thank you so much, Lisa, for participating in this wonderful interview for the Theatre Café
Thank you for
webinar.
having me. I was happy to attend.
Yeah, wonderful.